So here's the thing. The Bridge Kingdom was like a fantastical historical fiction vibe with deep intrigue and extraordinary characters. Before we get started, I want to say a quick hello and welcome all. It's Eclectic Kelpi, where we dive into the treasure trove of fantastical media. And if you want to explore the mysteries of a forbidden country, then discover that subscribe button to join us on all of our adventures. Quick heads up, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't finished reading, then come back once you're all done, because the ending is far too epic to not experience for yourself. Quick synopsis as a refresher of the Bridge Kingdom. Laura, the main character, is one of 12 princesses who have been training away in a desert oasis secluded from the rest of the world. She's been training to become the next queen of the enemy kingdom through a very precarious treaty that the two kingdoms have coordinated. In addition to that, in secret, they have been training to become an assassin to kill the enemy king and save her people from starvation due to the lack of tradable goods that have been provided from the Bridge Kingdom. Laura, out of her 12 sisters, ends up being the one to be selected to be sent off to Ithaca to marry King Aaron. Come on. Okay. This is my cat Pippin. She is then shipped off to the titular Bridge Kingdom to complete her mission, assassinate the king, and be the savior for her people. Or so she thinks. My first initial thought with the trope of the liar revealed, which is the primary catalyst for the plot moving forward, it is very obviously, and again spoilers, the king has lied to Laura about who Aaron is and how bad he is, and it really is like Laura's father that is the problem. And usually a liar reveal is kind of cliche and not really like fun or interesting, but I found that in this one it was actually very well done. And of course you wouldn't think that Laura would be thinking about or being exposed to the opportunity for extensive thought when she's been literally tortured with propaganda to have the thought that maybe she was being lied to. It was so ingrained in her from the age of 5 that, of course, why would she think anything was wrong? Why wouldn't she believe what she's been told her whole life, and what she's been exposed to her whole life is saying that the people of the Bridge Kingdom, Ithaca, are bad, and they are trying to maintain their wealth through extreme means of cruelty and not allowing her kingdom to have access to tradable goods and be fed. So yeah, even though the liar revealed is very obvious, of course the king is lying. We also, because of the dual POV, we knew right away that Aaron's not a bad person and would be doing that kind of thing. So it's pretty clear, but it feels genuine still from the experience of Laura's perspective that she wouldn't have thought that her father was lying to her, or that her kingdom was the villain all along. So yeah, I think it was very good. So now, my loves. The character development was fantastic. I loved seeing the process. It felt very like slow, well developed. Honestly, I think that the author Danielle Jensen is just such a good slow burn writer with it, and it makes it feel very organic and not rushed, and everything's very deliberate. So I loved the character development that we saw with Laura, and also with Aaron a little bit. I think Laura has a much bigger character arc than Aaron, because Aaron is kind of who he is consistently, but Laura is like, she goes through a really awesome character development, and I love to see it. Another extremely strong world development and descriptions author. Everything is so well described. I think that this is one of the ones that I was really enjoyed being transported into. It was so well detailed, and the world just felt so like, why I called it historical fiction, even though it's not. It's a completely unique and distinct fantasy world that has been created by Danielle Jensen, but it feels like it could be a historical fiction, and it feels like it could be something that happened in our world and is like chronicled, and it's just, there's so much detail, so much thought. It's not complicated or convoluted or confusing. Like, all of the different kingdoms, everything is just so well done, and I really enjoyed it. And that goes into the next point of environment. The very unique landscapes, there's such distinct differences between each kingdom's ecosystems, and like Ithacana being like a jungle versus like the other kingdom being more of like desert, and like it's just so very well developed that her world feels like a fully fleshed out globe, and I just think it's fantastic. Like it's just such a well articulated world state, and I love the environment and the incredible strong story. The story is so good. It just felt, it gave Throne of Glass. I'm not gonna lie, like the quality and the detail and the beauty that was put into this book was so well done. And obviously she's written so many more books for this series, and I'm so excited to finish Traitor Queen, but just the work and the storyline, the detail, the effort, the like extremely clear intentions, that everything was like put there intentionally and just so well written. And I just really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a very strong book, and yeah, I just loved it. So claps and snaps for Danielle. Such a good story. We also love to see it. She's a Canadian author. And finally, I loved Laura as the main character. I thought that she was so well done. She has, it's kind of like, again, like Throne of Glass level quality is, it's kind of like Aelin, where we see a lot of her flaws, but we love her for them because they feel authentic and genuine, and they're not annoying. They add to her being crafted into a fully fleshed out person, somebody that you can kind of connect with and feel more immersed into this story with, because she's such a strong character that you can empathize with and understand with and listen to and grow with. She's just such a good narrator, or she's such a good character to follow through this experience of her with the Bridge Kingdom and her going through all of these different experiences. And I think that she's incredibly strong and incredibly intelligent, and it's just wonderful to read her POV and get the world through her eyes. She's a very strong main character. I really enjoyed Laura. And we do, of course, have the dual perspectives. We do get Aaron chapters and Laura chapters, but I would argue that Laura is the main character because we're more so experiencing the world through her perspective and getting supplementary understanding through Aaron's. I feel more like Laura is the doer, and so that's why I feel like she is the main character, because she is the one creating actions, whereas Aaron is more the receiver. So with his chapters, we're kind of more seeing him receiving. So seeing her perspective, for just as an example, seeing his perspective of how she's been withholding affection as a manipulation tactic while she's in her like corruption era or her like assassination era, where she's like actively trying to destroy his kingdom from the inside out. So we see more her as the initiator and him more as like the receiver of her actions, and he's just kind of reacting. So, but I think it's kind of clear that Laura is like the primary main character, and then Aaron's chapters are kind of nice just as the contrast of how he's receiving what she's doing. I had to be so nitpicky about what I didn't like because I liked the whole thing. To be very honest, I thought that this was such a well done story, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm so happy to have gotten to read it and experience this world. The only thing that I didn't like, that Laura didn't just completely be honest with Aaron once she was divulging that she was there trained as an assassin to destroy his kingdom from the inside out, that she didn't tell him about writing the exact details of how to destroy his kingdom on the official parchment, and he sent one out to her father when it could have been avoided. Obviously, again, why I had to be so digging for something to not like, I didn't like that, but I also understand that that had to be the catalyst for the sequel and for the series to continue, because obviously there had to be a way for there to be the next conflict and for all of it to kind of come to a head and for the kingdoms to have their war and for all of the things to happen. So obviously she had to have it leak somehow. I just didn't think it was very authentic that after she had already been honest with Aaron about the fact that she had been trained and came there under intentions of being a spy, that she then didn't just tell him and be honest. It felt a little bit not truthful to that moment between them, even though it was tried to be justified with, oh, I don't want to like do this one last thing to make him, you know, I don't want to hurt him that much more. But I feel like with how he was responding to Lara, that Aaron would have been understanding and it wouldn't have changed anything because she was already being honest about the situation. It felt very plot device in that particular moment, but I understand that it was a plot device in that particular moment, so what can you do about it? It just is what it is. It's part of the storytelling. I didn't like it, but it made sense, so just the one thing though. And then my only wish. I am too dyslexic to not have a pronunciation guide. This was rough, so if you haven't noticed, I haven't said the not Ithacana, the other kingdom, because I just genuinely, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. So anyways, yeah, it would have been nice to have a pronunciation guide. It's not the biggest deal, but it would have been nice to have, so that's why it's my wish. But genuinely, like, I don't really have complaints about this book, and so that's why I'm having to be like so like digging for little things to not like or to wish or like change or like whatever. I'm having to like be so picky about little things, but yeah, genuinely, I just really loved this book and I'm excited to continue on with this world. I loved it so much. So ultimately, fantastic. Like, I really don't have anything to complain or to not say nicely about it. And then the tropes that were included was slow burn romance, which I actually think again goes into the loves section. I think she did such a good job with the slow burn. It really felt like they had time to like get to know each other and to fall in love and to actually like have a rapport with each other before they fell. And then obviously arranged marriage trope. That was the whole premise in the beginning of the book, was that they were betrothed. Liar revealed, we talked about that already with the king. Enemies to lovers, kind of loosely though. I feel like imposed enemies to lovers, but they're like forced to get along, so yeah. Still enemies to lovers, like their kingdoms like were at war, but like nice enemies to lovers. And then he falls first, which we love. It was so good. I think it was so well done. And now just for my final thoughts. I thought that this was a beautifully written book. The only thing that it didn't have in terms of a fantasy book was a magic system, but it genuinely didn't need one. I thought that this was perfectly well done with having it be a more like historical fiction kind of energy. I really appreciated that, and I loved the vibes that it brought. It felt very fresh and wonderful. I also really liked that it was so clear that neither side, well, obviously sans like Lara's father, the king, but I loved that neither one was right or wrong, good or bad. It was very like, here's why we're doing this thing, and this is our reasoning for why we have to be really sometimes cruel and cold when dealing with other people who are attacking our kingdom. This is why we have this reputation for being a cold kingdom and treating people harshly and all of that kind of stuff. And then Lara on the other side of that is justifying because she's thinking she has to save her people from starvation. She's seeing the repercussions of not having fresh food being traded through the bridge, and so her whole thing is being motivated by trying to help her people. And so neither one of them is ill-intended. Neither one of them is being portrayed as better or worse than the other. They're just two people who have really good intentions, who are maybe not acting on them in the most optimal way, but I really appreciate that both of them are right in their own ways, and neither of them are being painted as wrong. And again, I really liked the dual POV for that reason, and also just for the getting to know the characters and being able to fall in love with them both separately. I think that that was a really strong choice from Danielle Jensen of giving us more to interact with in terms of character connection. There was a lot of really awesome side characters as well. The side characters were side characters in this book, I felt. The focus was really on Aaron and Laura, but I think that that was the point, and that was a really strong choice because it made us care about the two of them a lot more as readers, and it was focused. Like, that was the point, is it was focused. The author had a very specific story that she wanted to tell, and she executed it perfectly, and I think that's beautiful. I was very pleased. And the point was for Lara and Aaron to be equals, so having dual POV made sense. It was very poignant that they were equals and they were on equal footing. So I really loved it. I'm gonna give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I think that it was so good, and I feel like I would give it higher, but nothing's really gonna surpass Lord of the Rings or Throne of Glass for me, but it's very top tier, and I was very impressed with this book. And 2 Little Flames out of 5. There wasn't a lot of spice in this book, just one small scene at the close to the beginning, and then most of it was at the end, but this book wasn't supposed to be about spice, so it really balanced everything very well. I was very impressed with how all of the components to this story were incorporated. It was very well done. And those were my thoughts on the Bridge Kingdom. I'm super stoked to start the Traitor Queen. I feel like, going to be very grand and epic, and I'm excited to see how the story continues. I have very high expectations. Let me know how you enjoyed this book. What were your loves, dislikes, wishes, any hot takes you have? Let me know down in the comments. And with that, thank you all so much for watching. Everything with love, and we'll see you next time in the Treasure Trove. Bye!